Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Jim Weldon, CEO of Prospect Desk and a serial founder with 6 startups under his belt. Over 25 years, Jim's built sales teams, formed strategic alliances, and helped generate hundreds of millions of new business. From Silicon Valley accelerators to Fortune 100 clients like Apple and Intel, Jim brings real-world experience in data, tech, and growth strategy. He's helped companies scale to 100 million, turned around stalled revenue, and break into new markets. With deep roots in both corporate and startup ecosystems, Jim knows what it takes to lead, grow, and win because he's done it again and again. I've asked Jim to join us here today to share his story and what he thinks it's going to take to thrive in this brave new world. So, Jim, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Daryl. Thanks for having me. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
appreciate you coming on and agreeing to this interview. And before we go and talk about your companies and what you think of the future holds, how did you even get started? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Is this sort of the torch you're carrying that your parents carried for you, or are you a trailblazer?
My dad was an entrepreneur, but we didn't know that's what he was. He just had a small business. So we didn't throw the word entrepreneur around in our house. He had a painting company, he had an electronics repair business. So all you know is dad went to work, he had some people working for him, and they made money. There wasn't this notion of this ethereal, amazing thing called an entrepreneur, which I think became very in vogue with the tech industry starting really, I think, in the late 80s, early 90s. Turns out we were actually, my brothers and I aren't too bad entrepreneurs, but we definitely had grit from my mom and dad. There's the stick to itiveness, think about things, be diligent, and frickin' do not give up. And it's the famous Churchill quote, right?
Yeah.
About quitting, just never, ever give up. And sometimes that really can penalize you if you're dense, and other times it perseveres through. So I would say we blazed our own trail, but we didn't realize we were from entrepreneurs, to answer your question.
I love that. So did you help out your dad like in the shop or anything when you were a kid? Is that you got hands
Yep,
on?
everybody got a chance. We didn't do allowances. He believed that was structured welfare. So everybody had to work. So as a 5-year-old, just tells you, it's child labor. We were in cleaning the shop floors. We were taking the trash out. We cleaned the bathroom. Definitely child labor. I'm sure there would have been some issues. And
Whatever.
then what happened? Yeah, then what happened was, you get to go out and hang out with your pops in the paneled van and go out on a job, and you get to mix some paints when you're 10 or 11, and then you get to 12 or 13 and you're allowed to climb on a ladder and start painting siding on a house. So child labor, like I said.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
you love
he
it.
had us all. Oh my God, it was wonderful because what kid doesn't want to spend time with their dad?
Yeah. All kids want to do is just be your best friend. That really hit me like a
Exactly.
ton of bricks when I realized that. I don't remember where I heard it, but they're like, all your child wants is to be your best friend. And no one's ever going to want to love you like that. That's just so
Yep.
powerful. So,
Yeah, what's funny was I heard a saying which was the only man on the planet who wants you to succeed more than them is your father.
yeah.
And you're just once you're to me, I'm like, wow, that's exactly the aspirations I have for my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a pretty powerful thing of don't compete with them, help lift them up. And
Yeah.
if you take that perspective, man, what a point of before we got on, what are you grateful for? And it's family and health.
Yep.
And I'm very lucky to work with my son.
Mm,
And so he's definitely has the bug, and he's been groomed since he's literally in 6th grade or 6 years old to start a company.
that's awesome. That's so fantastic. So you're helping your dad at 10 years old mix the paint. And did
Yep.
you like what was maybe your first business? Did you have a lemonade stand? Were you mowing lawn?
It's funny. It started with junior achievement. My dad said, "Hey, go to this event at the middle school," and that's where I was. And he goes, "Just go check it out." And that was his way of trying to get me an external mentor. And then we did the stupidest product, which was you took a brick and painted it gold and sold it as a doorstop. And I was able to sell them. And he goes, "If you can sell that, you can sell anything because that is the most worthless product I've ever heard." He goes, "You might have a gift." So that's how it got started. And then I got paper routes, and then I started hiring kids and splitting the profits with them because I had the in because my mom worked for the newspaper. So I got 6 paper routes. You're not supposed to have more than one, but I had 6. 5 other people delivered on the other ones. I delivered mine. I got half of their revenue. We had a snow clearing business on the Cape, and I had 5 people working for me in middle school to clear driveways. What we would do is we'd go up and say, "Hey, what do you think it's worth?" They're like, "What do you
Mm,
mean? What do you want to pay us to clear your driveway? We'll be glad to do it. And whatever you're comfortable with, we're fine." What we found was we would get 20 to 30% higher than everybody else because we didn't pressure them. So
wow.
I learned my first thing about turning it over, and people will do the right thing in a situation. So I went from paper outs to that. Started at junior achievement, which I just laughed. And then in high school, didn't do too much. And then at university and college, started trying to figure out some side hustles and sold encyclopedias. And now I'm just spinning. I have no idea what I'm doing and trying to make money. And it didn't happen until I was about, my brother went to Pepperdine and I was exposed to some really amazing families. And I'm like, what the heck did all these families do it to send their kids to Pepperdine? My brother got a full scholarship. And you start hearing every single one of them came from a family of entrepreneurs. And I'm like,
Mm,
hey, this entrepreneur thing,
mm,
because my dad was right, small business. He wasn't an entrepreneur. And they all built something, chemical plants, grocery store chains, roofing companies with 5 Western state offices. And what was amazing is I'm like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Don't know what that is, don't know how to do it. Started the journey, and within 3 years, we had got ourselves into a deal. And a year later, we were doing 60 million in revenue and we owned the whole company. Ta-da, I guess
wow.
we were okay at it.
Yeah. So what was the first company?
3 day tax refunds. We were at the inception inflection point of electronic filing for low income people in the US. So think before TurboTax and
Hmm.
electronic filing, we went out and signed up Hispanic tax offices because obviously I look Hispanic and I speak
Right.
Spanish. Nope,
Right.
on both fronts. But here's what we did learn. We're Irish Catholic, so are they, most of them in the Latino
Mhm.
market. They're family oriented. They have a chip on their shoulder and all they want to do is be treated with respect. That is a huge thing in the Irish community. Treat us with respect, you got us forever. So what we do is we'd go out and meet these wonderful entrepreneurs from all these wonderful countries, whether it was Guatemala or Cuba or wherever, and in East LA, South Central, San Fernando, Ventura, San Isidro at the border in San Diego. And we signed up in 2 years, 1,500 tax offices, and we're the
Wow.
second largest filers of electronic tax returns in the state of California
Wow.
behind H&R Block.
Wow.
Yeah, my brothers and I were pretty good at selling. We all have the gift of relating to people and asking them their story.
Do you think
That's why
that's
I love what you've done. That's what I love what you've done with this, the way you do your interviews. And you just come in and you poke around people's lives and pull out the interesting stuff and that we didn't realize was interesting. So that's a good
yeah.
skill.
Oh, thank you. It's all about the people. I think more and more as we get into devices and technology, that stuff is there. It's a tool, but it's always been about the people. It's been about the kids. It's been about the people closest to you. People forget that. Without that, you just be. I traveled the world a couple times over. I learned 3 languages, and then I helped the company make 3 million in less than 8 months. Nothing like what you did, but I had a
Still
mini
an amazing.
retirement. Yeah. And when I just realized the money wasn't going to make me happy. And then I went, I was like, okay, I got the career part sorted out. I got to get my health and the relationship part down. And I've, now I'm married. I got 2 kids, probably going to have another 8 more if I get my way. I kicked all my addictions. I live like a monk, and it's just family, fitness, and
Fantastic.
serving the world, and really got in tune with my purpose. And that's
I
part
love
of
it.
it is helping other people. And when you travel the world and you do things and you're doing it and you got no one to share it with, at first it's just being able to do it, right? Oh, I wanted to, but then once you do it, you want, like you said, with your kids, the only person that you want to do better than you, there's no one to share it with. I've done this thing, but it's just for me, and I'm alone right now. And so what?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about this all the time, which is there's just things that we'll never be able to share with anybody else that just really give us a lot of sense of, I'll say, pride
Yeah,
and just appreciation,
yeah,
which is the kids are doing great, knock wood. Our grandson she's up there now with my daughter, helping them out. And there's just, life's just really quite simple when you look at it at the end of the day. Take care of yourself and your business and your family. It's the pebble in the pond.
yeah,
Good vibes,
yeah,
do the right things. Like you said, try to keep the insanity, the negative self-talk and the addictions to a minimum.
yep.
Life's not that complicated. It's when you let those things get out of hand, boy, you show up in a toxic, horrible,
Yeah.
non-productive,
Oh yeah.
defensive way.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I get some people's knock on religion because there's good mixed in with bad, but at the same time, my dad came to visit us here in the Philippines, and I was talking to my daughter, and I said something about one of the deadly sins, and he's, "You're not going to try and teach her that nonsense, are you?" And I was like, "Okay, you tell me how to explain more morality to my 5 year old daughter in a way that will make sense to her. You go ahead and help me how to validate that." And I just said, I was like, "Show me people that embody the 7 deadly sins that are living a good life. Any of them." Show me people that are embodying the 7 virtues that are living a bad life, any of them. So it's more just a meme for human flourishing. And I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not trying to take this conversation that way. I did Gracie Jiu Jitsu for a long time, and I saw the fallout when the Gracies proved that basically wrestling and grappling, like submission wrestling, we're basically the ultimate in one-on-one hand-to-hand combat. One-on-one hand-to-hand. If your weapons, all that, maybe it's different. But for one-on-one hand-to-hand, it's wrestling and submission wrestling. Those are the two things that are going to dominate. But still in my hometown, there were karate guys teaching that this is the best self-defense. And when you got the judo, the taekwondo guys, and I realized somebody spends 30 years building up a platform, they're not going to go and start over at the base of someone else's. And I realized that how likely is that when you think of the power that religion sways over people, for someone to go, listen, I might make this thing.
Yeah, go ahead. One of the things I was going to say so to me, it's whether it's religion, it's an approach to taking your company to market, it's how you lead your life. Everybody has their perspective and their prism and their point of view. How's it any better than ours? And my belief is, if it's not taking somebody down, like and you and I both, I agree. I happen to think Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and submission, people, they get their hands on you, you're done. You're not going to be able to do Taekwondo with a kick to the section, because they're going to grab your leg, they're going to twist your ankle and break it, and you're going to be wondering what happened. And that's not fair. Or whatever Bruce Lee studied. Okay, that's a little more aggressive, but guess what? They're not so strong if you get their legs, and you got a problem. You just got to get down their legs. So to me, it's point of view. What are you trying to do with it? If it's to be healthy, productive, competitive, those are all wonderful things. It's like religion. I think it's comforting, it's organizing, it gives people a way to stay committed to their faith, whatever it is. It's when it goes cultish, or you use it in such a way, there's only one issue, like all the right wings. It's like, guys, just multiple viewpoints are okay. That's why I think multiple religions are good. Multiple fighting styles are good. And why do we need the best? So to me, just let them all survive. And hey, if you want to have a big tournament and see who's going to win, hey, that's okay. Because you and I both know Gracie Jiu-Jitsu probably will succeed.
You need diversity. You need the diversity. It's
100%.
You need it, even if it's as a survival mechanism. Diversity leads to stability, because you don't know what you don't know. And we need to discover new knowledge to move past where we are now. And we're not necessarily going to get there doing the same things that we've always done. So there's a lot of respect for that. But I think, anyways, going back.
Look at it. Go back to business. And you just had a great segue there, which is the diversity provides different perspectives for discovery. If you look at what DeepSeek, the company out of China, and I'm not here to push China, but if you look at the three founders' approaches, they built a quant investment fund, quantitative analytics fund. They self-funded themselves from their profits. They generated $140 million. These three PhD kids, no government support, no venture capital. And they took a whole different way than NVIDIA at $3 trillion, OpenAI, Grok from Elon Musk, from Apple's stuff, Microsoft's. And they did it at 1/10 the cost, at parity. And it's back to your point. Their diversity was, they thought like financial quant heads, performance optimization, versus these other guys are not performance optimizers. They are brute force, raise capital, 25,000 GPUs from NVIDIA. And it was, holy shit, if they didn't have that diversity, they wiped out, I think it was $11 trillion in tech value in 3 weeks for that announcement. And about half of it's come back, or maybe a little bit more.
Wow.
But that, just back to your point, that's the power of diversity and perspective. It can change the whole ship super fast. And I think people underestimate that kind of capability in small teams.
100%. And I think a lot of this is we're knowledge seeking as a species. I think that's when you build a business, and what you achieved, like with your first business you talked about, it was an evolution in how we did things and made to do better. Buckminster Fuller used to talk about this. Like, nobody argued about indoor plumbing. No one was like, there was no political debate around, do you want indoor plumbing or not? No, I want to shit in the bucket still. There was no debate. So this is where technology and innovation can really make massive differences and move things forward. There's no, do you want a heater in the middle of the winter? There's no political debate around some of this stuff. And it just advances us and moves us forward.
Let's get scary here, because I think, and this is one of the things I'm struggling with in our company, is think of your org chart as now people-based. Org charts are going to be smart agent-based. We're already looking at half of the roles in our company are being done by smart bots, AI agents, like AI flows. It's the old whip and buggy versus the automobile, right? Okay, a whole bunch of new jobs got created, but that's a false equivalency, because once you put a bot in place, it can run that task, and continually, if it's recursive, it can fix itself and get better and smarter. holy crap, what happens to the people that were,
Mhm.
and I'll give you an example. We just changed a role from an SDR, a sales development rep, to a digital performance manager. We just made up the title, and here's what their job is. They do their SDR calls to deal with anything like for your business coaching, or we would do for our resolution customers at Prospect Desk. And what we did is instead of them interfacing with a person that does the outbound LinkedIn and a person that does the email marketing and display advertising and the handles the inbound chat requests and the form fills, they're all managed by this person under their virtual part of the organization. They have 6 bots that work for them. And they run them all. And I'm like, holy crap. I
Mhm.
went from I was going to hire 3 more people to
I don't need
we
to hire
put a
anyone.
month's worth of effort into these bots and I saved myself 180, 200,000 a year just on those 3 lower level roles. And guess what? They're faster, better, easier to tweak. They don't need time off. They don't get insurance. So am I helping society or am I hurting it?
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma I'm looking at. Holy crap. What do we do now? And Eric Schmidt's been talking about it. And Bill Gates I don't know what to do. This is a problem. So if Bill Gates says it's a problem and he doesn't see a solution, I'm thinking it's a pretty big problem because he's a pretty smart dude and all he does is think now. So yeah, we're gonna have income inequality like you've never seen in the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to and let's talk about this for a little bit because I think you're right. I think there's 2 parts to this because what's interesting is that we essentially turn sand into intelligence.
Silicon, yep.
And that was always available. We just didn't know how to do it. And so it took time for us to figure out how to do it. So all this stuff is still available. I live in a neighborhood in my neighborhood, and we've got security guards, all these people. We've got gardeners that walk through the neighborhood gardening all the time. No one's growing food in their yards. Not a single yard around here has, I mean, we've got a couple of papaya trees, but the whole subdivision could be growing mangoes, lemons, oranges, all. It's not like we don't have gardeners that are already on payroll that are walking through doing this. I lived in Penticton, BC in Canada, and that's what it was there. Everybody had cherry trees and apricot trees and grapevines in their backyard. And everybody,
I've never heard of that place. Where is it in Canada?
Penticton, they call it a place. It's Indian and it means a place to stay forever. It's in the Okanagan Valley. It's a couple hours north of Soyuz, the crossing with the states.
Got it.
Yeah, it's near Kelowna. So
Got it.
yeah, anyhow, but and that's what Penticton was. It was a great little spot, and everybody grew food. And my point and reason in saying that is, I agree that there's going to be shuffling, and I don't know what it's going to look like, and it's probably going to be chaotic and feel chaotic in the middle, and maybe even really weird. But it's not
As an
necessarily like,
entrepreneur, I'm not afraid one bit because I will pivot, I will innovate. I'm already doing it.
yeah,
We took our org chart and we basically said, let's see if we can functionally actually do this, create these smart agents. We are.
yeah,
And like Cursor is the development platform we use. We were going to hire 2 new developers. We didn't. We built an application instead of in 6 months, built it in 3 weeks with one person.
yeah, yeah,
That's just holy crap. That's a lot of bodies that we didn't hire and people that don't have jobs from us. And guess who's doing the same thing? They're tracking the amount of open job recs at the big companies, the Googles, the Microsofts, declining.
yeah, yeah. It's
They're
tough to
retraining
say.
people and reusing them.
It's tough to say because maybe we finally have achieved it, but they've been saying we were going to replace humans from the beginning. When we had tractors, we won't need farmers anymore. We have calculators. We're not going to need bookkeepers, spreadsheets, and QuickBooks. We're not going to need accountants. So
Well, here's the difference. And this is where I agree with you because there was a short-sightedness. We were still a physical-based world.
hmm,
If you look at what's happened now is we're a digital electron-based world now. So the ability to take the single fastest growing sector is electron based. It's incredibly unique. That's why, and the people that are now saying that are not the same people who said, you know what, let's close down the patent office because everything's been invented that was going to be
right.
invented. When was that, 1910 or whatever that was? No, these are some of the greatest thinkers of our generation that are sitting there going, holy smokes, this isn't good.
Yeah,
I think Eric Schmidt's a pretty smart guy from Google. I think Bill Gates is a pretty smart guy. And they're sitting there going, holy crap, this is, and they're very much historians and they understand. So to me, I'm excited because as an entrepreneur, I'm like, back to your point earlier, disruption and diversity. I'm like, that just means there's going to be a lot of confused people don't want to do. That's what entrepreneurs do. We shoot those gaps, figure out how to get our wedge in, and then we make a new opportunity. We don't even care what the opportunity is. We just, if
yeah,
we are excited about the opportunity, we just do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to work at IBM for 25 years. That's not my career. My career is build it and take advantage of market opportunities that I can bring some great people on and we all make some money.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely going to be an interesting future. I was reading the Plantar.
Palantir.
Is that it? Okay. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
reading it, but he was talking about, where is it? I want to find this if I can find it and read it. He said the rush towards large language models, as well as the foundational software architecture that is capable of making them valuable to large organizations, has turned into a stampede. What was once a relatively orderly process of assessment and evaluation of these novel technologies has evolved into a ravenous whirlwind of adoption as an increasing number of institutions grasp the magnitude of the shift that is washing over industry and government. And I think that's very true. But I think, what do you think? Let's talk about this. How do we navigate that future then? What are some of the safe beaches, so to speak, or safe havens for people that are concerned? Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you need to pivot, you need to innovate, you need to focus on solving a problem. Yeah.
So yeah, we like to talk about the big problems with some of my other CEO buddies, and I think there's three things that need to happen quickly. One is we need to figure out affordable housing in the US because the homelessness thing's a mess. Number two, I think commercial growing needs to be in buildings, not in fields, because what's interesting about that is less water, more efficient application of sunlight. You don't need pesticides. It requires less people. You can do telemetries easier in regards to checking grow rates, aeration, all that stuff. So there will be commercial, like for instance, not walnuts. What's the other crop? Almonds. It's the single worst crop in California. It sucks the most water down of any industry in the entire state, growing almonds. And it's a money crop. So they're not getting rid of it. What if they could move that indoors? And it's
Yeah.
possible. There's these things called malls that are going away that need to be multi-purpose. I think there's three things and ways to deal with it. One is not everybody needs to go to college and be in the white collar economy.
Yep.
I think this whole infrastructure component is a reality, which is building these, managing these. The gardener thing, I think, is a great analogy. It's a low level entry position that could give somebody a chance to be a commercial grower. They could take care of people's trees on properties and cut their fruit and consumption by X, because as you and I both know, a lot of stuff comes from Mexico or Colombia or in Central America, where because we want fruits in 20 or 12 months a year, we can't grow them in the States 12 months a year. So guess what? Now we have the carbon footprint, the ship, the plane, the truck. What if we just grew it in your backyard?
Yep.
So, and I think there's this reallocation for portions. Where it's going to be hard is if you don't solve the housing, now you get to healthcare. And you and I talked early on in this call about the preventative stuff. It's your 2 hours of medicine, as you called it, which is I can invest in my 2 hours of movement or I'm going to be a mess by the time I'm 60,
Yep.
70 years old.
Yep.
To me, I think AI is going to be a great place to do that. So I think it can be for energy, which is a disaster, but we have to get smarter ways to do it. Bill Gates is working on it and other smart folks with fusion and some of the things in these mini reactors. Much safer versions of nuclear plants that they've come up with won't melt down on Fukushima in Japan. I think if you have energy that's affordable and we get away from carbon, then we have a healthier population. Then you have people that can grow or participate in the growing process, which we're not doing now. Then food becomes affordable. Use AI to construct homes with low cost materials using 3D printers. That is a real opportunity on site. What would it take to put together 20,000? Have you ever seen them with the cement where they build the house with the 3D printer? What if we built 20,000? You couldn't put 20,000 crews together in the US right now because of our immigration fears, because of what's going on with deporting all the people that do those jobs. If you're going to bring back, so if you have housing, affordable food, affordable health care, now what happens is you change the need for your economic remuneration. The pressure is off your job. You don't have to go to college and go into debt. You can be a blue collar person and survive. You can work on infrastructure projects for the government because we like to take care of our things, but we don't do them in an efficient way. So AI can be used to say, hey, here's the plan you should be using, not what the politician said or this person. This is the most efficient plan for use of public funds. There's no litmus test on that. AI is going to help you figure out that litmus test. And it's going to say, this doesn't pass the sanity test, the common sense test. You guys fail. That's how our defense industry is so out of control. There's nobody that can challenge them to say it doesn't cost $2 billion to build a fighter.
Yeah.
AI is going to be able to do it because it's going to say, and that's what Elon Musk did, if you think about it.
Yep.
He took a black box operation with NASA and said, there's got to be a better way than this stupid contract thing with Boeing and the Saturn jets. And he just basically said, I can do it and reuse them and I'll make it 1/20th the cost. And everybody's
Yep.
like, bullshit. And guess what he did?
He did it.
He is the single greatest launcher of
Yep.
satellites and rockets in the history of mankind.
Yep.
And he's doing it at scale. So
Yep.
back to your point, what do we have to do? Take care of the basics. If the basics are taken care of, it suppresses this need for this ever rising base income.
Yep.
And then you bring the income inequality together on Maslow's need hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
shelter, safety, food.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
taken care of, now all of a sudden, guess what we can do? We can put people in learning environments where they're not getting student loans out the ass. They can just learn. I can
Yep.
learn to be a farmer. I can learn to be a craftsman, whatever the hell it is.
Yep.
What happened to plumbers?
Yep.
Like, when did
Yeah.
that become a bad thing to be a plumber?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do that anymore. Nobody
Yep.
wants to be a roofer. Nobody wants to be a wood craftsman in a wood shop, at least
Yep.
not a lot of people.
Yep.
So anyways, I think we're going to go full cycle. I think we'll get more hands-on
Yeah.
if we figure out some base things and the infrastructure of running the countries around the world. And guess what's happened is we all gotten greedy. Our luxury level has gone up. We want better, cooler, more expensive crap. And guess what that leads to is I want more for me, so you're going to get less. It's a zero-sum game, and it doesn't end well. Every single civilization has shown as soon as the zero gets too small for the lower people, you have uprising. And anyways, I think the uprising will be hacks and attacks on infrastructure, data, grids. That's the next surface attack area in the world. Is going to be on the bits and bytes part of everything. It's going to be a mess.
Yeah. I really agree with you on that the foundation's doing those really well. I think we talked about a prior to the call. I'm working on the Oasis Bio Home, which is a self-sufficient home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's in the States. He offers no money down, beautiful self-sufficient home you can build in 90 days and pay off in 3 to 5 years to be relatively food, power, water, self-sufficient.
Yeah, who would want that? What kind of crazy stuff are you talking, Daryl?
Yeah,
what kind of crazy talk?
Yeah, but I think it goes back to what I was trying to say, and I got a bit of a tangent that we could just be doing things smarter. People could be planting
100%
yards instead of shrubs that serve no purpose. So there is a bit of that, and I think we might. I don't know. I guess time will really tell. What do you think are some of those important skills and behaviors to adopt as we move into this?
It's funny. I wrote down a couple. I was thinking business side, but I think there's probably better ones just for in general survival in society. The first one is this never-ending belief in our ability to adjust and adapt. I don't think people have that. And what's another word for it is grit. But I just haven't seen people where they have that belief that they can be flexible and adapt. So this isn't working. I've checked out. I've given up. As they say, the quiet quitting in the US. I forgot to tell my boss I quit. I'm just not working hard. I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, and it's obvious with you, and one of the things I pride myself on, lifelong learning. I'm so blown away by how little people read. And I listened to Charlie Munger when he was alive, and I bought his book on meta models. And I never really understood how powerful they were in his entire career of 99 years old. And since he was 18 years old, he's been thinking in terms of meta models. My whole life, that's what I've thought in, is how do I build a model to represent the model of what I'm doing? And if you have a good meta model, then you can make, with better data, better decisions. I think most people don't have any construct of how to make a decision. They make a reaction. So what happens is they get really bad outcomes because they don't know how to make decisions relative to their life. And I'm not talking, should I go to college or should I marry this person? I'm talking about basic long-term investment in yourself, which is, hey, if I have self-control, whether it's my emotions, my food, my energy, attitudes, I'm amazed at how many people don't realize, and I've gone through this. So my personal experience, I'll start from there, is I could do whatever I wanted because I was an entrepreneur and I just took full advantage of it. I was a jackass. So then what happened was when I rolled it back, I'm like, boy, that's not the wake I want to leave in my life. So how do I be a better person? So I had to change my models on just because I could do whatever I wanted. That doesn't mean I should. Little self-restraint. I'm amazed how many people don't have self-restraint. They're rude to people. They take advantage of them. They're dismissive of them in public settings. They talk down to them. Holy crap. Imagine if we were just decent to each other.
Yeah.
How much better the planet would be. So to me, it's that, how do you have that model inside of yourself just to make better decisions? I think that is the fundamental tool. Then if you guy and I get in business and we have these personal meta models on how to make decisions, we're going to be a lot kinder, supportive, creative, because we're not going to be at odds. I don't have to be because, hey,
Yeah.
Daryl has a good idea. I respect it. And you know what? Let's try Daryl's idea instead of, you know what? I'm going to be right. I'm going to prove it. I'm going to stick it in your ear. And now all of a sudden we're confrontational. Kind of the way business has been running. When it's cooperative, which by the way, that's why primary research from the federal government is so important at higher
Mm-hmm.
institutions of higher learning, because we would never invest in the types of things that go on with primary research in
Mm-hmm.
universities. It's too risky. But
Mm-hmm.
that's that creative tension in a good way, where there wasn't the expectation of an economic outcome. They made a good decision. That's a good. Now the government's talking about giving none of those dollars in the US, and that's going to undermine almost every major tech industry has been a result of some advancement in higher education in the US. Every single one in the tech
Mm-hmm.
side, at least. Nobody did it in their garage on their own. Yeah, long-winded answer.
No, it's good.
If people understood how to think, I guess another way to say this is, did they really understand how to think? And my experience is in very simplistic ways. I got to get some money. I got to feed myself. I got to get the kids to school. I got to
Yeah.
get to bed.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Survival.
Comes back to providing those basic things and then empowering people to almost follow. I was really shocked. I saw this video at these IVF clinics where they fertilize an egg. And when the sperm and the egg meet, there's literally a spark, like a flash of light.
Really? Oh,
Scientists
that's
say,
crazy.
scientists say it's a release of zinc, but show me this release of zinc that leads to conscious life, right? That blew my mind when I first saw it, because that means that you're like, you really are like, you have a spark. Like that's, you came into this world as a spark. Like literally, this is repeatable. You can watch videos of it all day on YouTube. When the sperm and the egg meet, there is flash, sometimes multiple flashes of light. That means there's a spark inside you. There's a spark inside me.
I
And
like
that,
that.
I found that really heartwarming. And that's like, comes back to once we get out of the scarcity mentality. Peter Thiel gave this great talk talking about aliens. He was saying that I think if a sufficiently advanced civilization would either appear as angels or demons, because when you have the ability, just take warp drive as an example. If I could just warp a nuclear bomb anywhere at any time instantaneously and there's no defense, either you need to be so altruistic that you wouldn't conceive of doing that, or you need to have such totalitarian, like draconian, demonic controls over everyone that they can't do that. And I thought that was an interesting dichotomy, like an interesting juxtaposition between the
Well,
two.
yeah, I tell people if you look at the size of the galaxy, within probably 50 light years, there's civilizations that are probably more advanced than us, because statistically, there's no way we're the only place that can support life as we know it.
Right.
There's some version of something else that's been here for a couple of 100 million years. We're a couple of million.
Right.
What would we look like in 198 million years from now as a
Yeah.
species if we even make it?
Yeah.
And that would be like, holy crap. People don't think like that. We're thinking from 2000 AD. Okay,
Yep. Yep.
that's one construct for one religion. You're going to discount the Chinese. You're going to discount the Jewish religion.
Yep.
They're 5,000 and 6,000 years old. They're 300% older than Christ.
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. The Mormons, are we going to discount theirs because John Smith? No, of course not.
Right.
Everybody has their version. Guess what? There's other versions out there in the universe for sure.
For sure. And that's comes back. I like what David Deutsch says in the book, The Beginning of Infinity, that essentially we are knowledge seeking creatures, and science is specific explanations with details that are hard to vary without changing the outcome. So the way we figured out that we weren't the center of the universe was actually observing the phases of the moon, of Pluto, just like we have phases of the moon, like a full moon and a half moon.
I didn't know that.
Pluto. Then by doing the calculations and the geometry, could figure out the only way this lines up is if that is
we all rotate around this other thing.
Yeah, this other thing. And that was the way that they figured it out. Whereas with the Greeks, they have myths about whatever phase got kidnapped and the world cries. That's why we have winter, because she's back in Hades and she gets released for spring. And it's just, there's so many details that are easy to vary. And again, going back to how we turn sand into intelligence, that all of this is like, whatever it is, we're about growth and we're about discovery and continued learning. And I tend to think life is very fractal. And I'm intrigued to see what you think. And I appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that it comes back to having the really real basics down pat.
Think about the stress on someone's life when the basics aren't handled.
Yeah.
So one of the things I read Ezra Klein's book on abundance, which I think is pretty fascinating, and it really changed my view on homelessness. And homelessness is a direct result of zoning. I don't know if you know that.
Okay.
So what it did is we decided we were going to protect our neighborhoods so that nobody could build anything different that wouldn't protect our economic interest and value in our home. And with the construct of a 30-year mortgage in the 70s, now people could really buy beyond their purchasing power, because
Mm,
that's a new financial instrument in the 70s.
yep.
It used to take 2 years and 3 months to save for a home in the 40s, 50s,
Yeah.
and 60s.
Yeah. It was
Now
30.
it takes a decade, almost a decade now, to save for a home that you're just like, oh my God, this is like you and I wouldn't, it's like,
Yeah.
this is not a great place to live. If
Yeah.
it's California,
Yeah.
$400,000 doesn't get you a great place in California.
No.
250 will get you a good place in Iowa. If you want to live in Iowa, that's
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
But you look at this and you're like, oh my God, it's like everything's changed and these people cannot participate in society. So then what we do is we stigmatize them. They gave up, they're drug addicts, they're mentally ill, which a lot were because we opened the insane asylums. And the reason I bring this up, not to get into some kind of social tirade, it's the practicality of business. If we are acing out an entire section of people, do we do the same thing in business? Do we do the same thing with our technologies? It's the Peter Thiel comment of, do you need somebody that's a totalitarian that's going to be the ultimate arbiter of this
Master
planet killing
planner.
technology?
Yeah.
Yep. Or do we trust each other for the altruistic beings that we can be sometimes, but have proven continually we are not? That's
Mm.
why we go to war. That's why we conquer lands. That's why we impose our views. That's why we don't like people different than us, whether it's ideologically or skin color or language. That's the saddest thing for me. Being in Silicon Valley, you become friends and respect just about every nationality on the planet because the best thinkers want to go there. It's the major leagues. If you want to be in the major leagues in technology, there's only one place on the planet, and it's not Beijing. It's
Mm.
not London. It's not Bonn in Germany. It's Silicon Valley,
Mm.
because it's the greatest ecosystem of innovation the planet has ever seen, period, full stop. So
Mm.
if that's the case, there are outliers. There's great companies here and there, but it's because of the melting pot, like back to your diversity comment,
Mm.
of viewpoints, approaches, culture, fears. So one scientist may be afraid, whereas if they meet Daryl's, I don't have any fears, and you unlock one of the greatest creative PhDs on the planet because of your enthusiasm. That's, to me, why it works so well and why I'm so sad with the isolationist politics in the US, because it's now a global economy. And being an isolationist and a populist is not the way for us to participate on a global scale for improving healthcare, energy, growing food, getting away from meats, which are just, I forget how much carbon the meat industry takes up in the US, but it's staggering what it takes to kill a cow and put it on the table. Staggering.
Mm.
So, anyways, these
Yeah.
social issues
No,
are
you're good.
intimately tied to business, because I think AI is going to either, like you said, send to Silicon. It's like either it's going to be the greatest thing to help uncover things we haven't even imagined, or it's going to crush half the
Mm.
planet.
Yep.
I haven't quite figured out which one yet, and I don't think Bill Gates has. And I follow a lot of what he talks about, and Bill is stuck. Oh,
Well,
reset button coming is what I think. And Warren Buffett said, I don't know if you saw his last comments. Warren Buffett's, there's a reckoning coming that will curl your hair
yeah,
financially. It's coming.
possibly. I agree in a lot of those ways. I think, like you said, the reckoning is throwing off some of the old archaic control systems that have been put into place. Just simple things that you talked about with zoning. It was protectionism, right? It wasn't necessarily innovation. In a free market,
Correct.
markets are unknown and unknowable. We talked about CrossFit before. Greg Glassman has this great talk. He talks about markets are unknown and unknowable. And I describe that as saying, if I asked you how many people were in market for a car, you might be able to find keyword research and foot traffic, but ultimately the real number is unknown and it's constantly in flux. But everyone can recognize excellence. So if excellence is our North Star, and Adam Smith in Wealth of Nation talks about that, free markets, and that ultimately people will vote for localized solutions that are the most excellent for their fit. And that's where
For
master
sure.
planning gets into problems, because now you have a master planner that delegates things that aren't localized, and it wipes out communities, and it doesn't have the nuance that it necessarily needs to have. And in Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith talks about certain trades that like certain wagon wheel tradesmen were only allowed to work on certain wagons. And that's the whole apprenticeship program was actually done to protect trades from the rise and fall of wages due to innovation. So now you had to be an apprentice for something like 7 years, and a master could only have 2 apprentices at a time. And this prevented the rise and fall. And we all know about the ecosystem. If there's too many rabbits, then there's more foxes. And when there's too many foxes, the rabbits shrink. And I think that's the chaos that maybe we might expect in the future with AI as comes through and just starts pointing out our flaws. Hey, this is impeding progress, so to speak.
So I would say the rabbits are the computers and AI are the foxes, and it's about to turn.
So maybe ask some of this. What are some of the day-to-day habits? How do we make this practical for someone? If they're a business owner now, what are some of the day-to-day habits? What should their focus be on, whether it's daily, weekly?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. And we talk about this all the time with our partners, which is what companies can you work with that get it? And the big companies, we'll call it the Fortune 5,000, forget 500. Let's just take the 5,000 largest corporations. There's somebody talking to somebody about how is this going to impact us? What do we have to do strategically? What investments do we need to make? There's some discussion going on. Even if you're a truck fleet, there's route planning and there's telemetry and helping improve performance and lower repairs on your cars.
Yeah.
I don't care the most basic industry. That's one. Is don't worry about the 5. The middle markets, that 100 million and above company to $1 billion, I think that's going to be where the biggest adoption is going to occur. That'll change the market's employment, and it'll be like, oh crap, is this helping or not? Here's the problem with the long tail, the 20 million plus businesses from the solopreneurs. I think it's going to be like bald spots on an old man. It's going to be patchy, ugly, thin, and eventually they're just going to get shaved out of the market. So what'll happen is, if I'm a small company and I live off of digital leads, I better make friends with a performance marketing company that I cut into my business, because that way I don't get left in the cold. Whatever that is, content creation, optimizing ads, return on ad spend. Like, I'm amazed at how bad performance marketers are at partnering with small businesses. If they just think about business coaching with you, if you had somebody that took that away and said, hey, Daryl, I'm just going to make sure your top of funnel is always full. And here's what I want for that. I want X revenue off success. I'm not even going to charge you. And it doesn't take them long to get to the point where the recurring revenue is strong enough that they can truly do a performance-based marketing business. I would partner like crazy and investigate, trial, and look for people that can prove their worth, because you're going to need somebody that takes 12 smart agents and puts them all together, because you're not going to do it. It's not your business as a small business. So think about it. If I'm a plumber, a doctor, a chiropractor, a vitamin sales shop, if I'm a woman's nails shop, how do I get people to come in? How do I get them to recognize me, become aware, get the coupons out? Like, that's 7 or 8 or 9 different areas of expertise that people don't have in their bucket. So I would partner. And then it gets to, are they trustworthy? Will they perform? Do they do it before they bleed you dry? That's the trick. So I think they're completely handicapped, a small business. But with that said, there will be people that will dominate, that will know how to do this well, and they will come to the top to help small businesses. And I deal with a few companies. I can't share their names because I don't have permission, but that do it with thousands of companies on their behalf. There's 20 million small businesses. So we need more companies like these ones I deal with.
Yeah.
So I see hope. That I would say there's hope for those companies, because people have figured out they won't be able to do it on their own, is the bottom line.
It sounds like we're entering an era of brutal meritocracy, which means that if you rise up to the occasion, if you try your hardest, if all you're hoping for is a fair game, that through sheer will and effort, hopefully you can iron out the skills to be able to prove your right to be in the race, so to speak. And the people that aren't willing to express that grit, aren't really focused on producing a result, they're the ones that are most likely to be at risk of being decimated. Is that a fair approximation?
Yeah, it's back to your point of every industry is outlived it. Think of just even video rental stores with Blockbuster on the roll up. It was a fantastic idea until it wasn't. Then streaming services, and look how close Netflix was to going out of business. They almost died. And now they're what, 80, $100 billion market cap. I think there will be delivery mechanisms and performance-based relationships that will really specialize by industry. So you and I both know how to generate leads for roofers or for plumbers or for business coaches. We just know the keywords, the terminology, the content, the places to post, the target markets of people to go after on LinkedIn. every single one of those things I just mentioned is a specialty. This isn't just to hit a magic button, an easy button. It just happens. You got it like you're doing with your podcast. That is a purposeful, curated strategy that you reuse to attract an audience to build your other part of your business. It isn't capricious. You just don't go, I hope it works. It's like there's forethought, there's a
Mhm.
professionalism around it. You pick the people you want to speak with, you create new friendships and relationships. You're
Mhm.
helping me because you're helping us promote and get out there. Hopefully, we help you because our content, it's outside of
Mhm.
an hour, it doesn't really cost us a lot for you and I to get together. And guess what? I'm a big Tony Robbins believer, which is there could be one thought moment or just spark, back to your point with the sperm and the egg, that could change the trajectory of your entire life. Think
Mhm.
about what you get to do. You get a chance to experience potentially a spark on every single one of these calls if you're looking for it. So if you're open to it, you'll get it. I don't think most people even have a clue to lift their heads up to know there's a spark. That would be the thing I would leave with about anything is be open to the spark.
Mhm.
That relationship, the friendship, the partnership, just just be a better person and showing up every day. Does that spark camaraderie? And there's
Mhm.
somebody willing to help you because it's like, you know what, Daryl, I really like you. You give off a great vibe. What do you need? And
Mhm.
holy smokes, if somebody says that to you, that could change your whole life. I've
Mhm.
had probably 3 or 4 dozen of those types of moments where people have said, what can I do to help you? And then I've learned, be ready with an ask, not to take advantage, but it's, hey, I'm trying to figure this problem out. I'm trying to get to this person. I don't know how to do this. And then because I'm very top of mind aware, I know what my ask isn't, hey, Daryl, give me $10. You don't ask for
Yeah.
money. I've learned you raise money professionally. You don't ask for money. That's
Mhm.
desperate. But for help, idea, inspiration, working on my problems with your thought processes, there's probably an idea you have that could change our whole company if we spend enough time talking together, if I was just open for it.
I
Back
love
to your
that.
spark.
I love that. I love that. Jim, this has been a great call. People probably want to listen to it a couple of times. I do want to be respectful of your
I
time,
hope
and I
so.
know we're coming up to the end. What would be your ask for anyone listening to this?
Good question. My ask is to be patient with the people you work with, internal and external, in your company. Figure out what makes them tick. Because what will happen is if I hire your firm or interact with your firm, and if the best version of you shows up, it makes my life easier. What
Mm.
I've learned is the best version of people don't show up in most interactions in business. So one of the things I've learned is I set the direction and I set the accelerator. So we're going to go this way, this fast. But my people get to determine how we're going to do it and in what order. They have a tremendous amount of input. So when they show up, they're in a really good headspace because I don't tell them what to do.
Mm.
So when people work with my company, I always talk to our partners. I go, hey, what do you think of how's it working with so and so? And they're like, oh, we love them. So to me, that's the best version of us showing up. So my ask would be treat your people internally. And this is me from not having this self-awareness for the first half of my career is treat them well by giving them the latitude and the respect. And the same thing with the people externally in your community is host that party, have people over, be
Mm.
grateful. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a potluck when 80% of the cost is covered by the people bringing food.
Mm.
Just is there a little bit of levity and lightness and fun you could bring to your family, your community, or to your people in your company? That would be my ask to the at large. And you know what? I don't have a specific need, so I don't have an ask there, but that would be my to the universe ask.
I love that. And if people want to reach out, if they want to learn more, if they want to get more involved and ask your insights on agentic automation and get you or your team to take a look at what they're doing, what are some of the best ways for them to contact?
Two ways: go to the website prospectdesk.ai or Jim at prospectdesk.ai. I answer all my own emails. Nobody else reads them. So if you're kind enough to put this out in the airwaves and someone wants to email me, they will get a response.
Excellent. So for those listening to this, go check out prospectdesk.ai. That is prospectdesk.ai, prospect desk at AI. Learn about how you can have agentic driven digital prospecting and also not be left behind as we move into this AI era of the world. And if you have a question for Jim himself, just send an email to Jim at prospectdesk.ai. Jim, thank you so much for joining us on this call. It has been an honor and a pleasure knowing you've got your own direct reports, your own companies, your own family, your own interests that you could be spending your time on. Thank you for coming and sharing with my audience and I so we can all do a little bit better.
Really appreciate having me on, Daryl. Thank you very much.